What's up, everyone? It's Benedict here, aka BHL Hudson. Welcome back to the BHL2 channel. Today we have our first movie review of 2026 for 28 Years Later 2, The Bone Temple. By the way, a little bit of a different background, a little bit of a different mic setup. I'm at the studio for the Poorly Planned podcast. Check it out. But regardless, we're talking about 28 Years Later 2 from Nia DaCosta, the follow-up to last year's 28 Years Later from Danny Boyle. Let's just get into it. First of all, actually, my thoughts on 28 Years Later 1. I was a pretty big fan of it. I like 28 Days Later. I don't think it's like the greatest horror movie ever, like a lot of people do, but I think it is stylistically interesting, creative, and quite scary, and pretty dark as well in ways that I think are reflected maybe in this film as well. And then 28 Years Later was, I think I respected it more than I really loved it. I respected that it went for something a bit different, and if you went to it wanting like a classic zombie, jump scare horror action movie, you get a little bit of that, but it is, in sort of Danny Boyle style, stylistically weird and also tonally a bit strange, where the ending, the climax bit, is quite somber and it becomes like a deep family drama towards the end. I thought it was an interesting film, more than I thought it was like an amazing film. 28 Years Later 2, which I had some concerns about because it's not Danny Boyle directing it, and I thought, like, is that stylistic weirdness going to carry over here? I actually think is an improvement on 28 Years Later. I might honestly like it more than 28 Days Later. I'm not sure yet. But I thought it was honestly a fantastic film. A really impressive, not just continuation of what Danny Boyle did, but honestly, I think it does what the last 28 Years Later film did better than that did. It maintains the stylistic uniqueness. It maintains also not being like a generic zombie movie by being more about the characters and this kind of stuff without that weird tonal inconsistency that I felt like 28 Years Later had, that I thought was interesting but was a little strange. This one manages to do the interesting stuff without the strange bit, which I think is really cool. But anyway, let's talk about the pros here that I've written down. First of all, the performances in this film. I can't believe it's like the first movie I've seen this year, barring The Rip on Netflix, but the first movie I saw in the cinema for 2026. These are like, I could see some of these performances being in my, top 10 performances of the year by the end of the year already. Ralph Fiennes is fucking fantastic in this movie. I'm pretty sure Ralph Fiennes does not have an Oscar yet, which is a travesty. I guess he doesn't have like the movie, although he Grand Budapest Hotel and English Patient was a big awards winner. He's just consistently fantastic in movies. I think he could have won. I think honestly maybe he should have won last year for Conclave. But yeah, consistently fantastic. And here he is, just like he was in the first film, the first 28 Years Later film, but, given more to do here, he gives an incredibly, like, empathetic performance. Not just that the character itself is empathetic, but also that you can empathize with him. He's incredibly likable. There is, as we'll talk about, a little bit of a good versus evil in humanity dynamic, and he represents, like, the good, sort of purity in humanity without being, like, unrelatable. And he's very funny as well. There's a bit here, I won't spoil it, but there's a bit involving Iron Maiden, a song from Iron Maiden, which is, I can see being like a top 10 scene of the year by the end of the year. That scene was fucking hilarious and awesome, and Ralph Fiennes just, yeah, I would say he carries this movie on his back, but everyone else is great too, including Jack O'Connell as the villain, who, is it just me? Maybe that's just not me for not like paying close enough attention, but is he kind of like come out of nowhere? Because he was fantastic in Sinners, one of the most memorable performances of last year, and he's just as good in this as he was there. They are sort of similar-ish characters. One is a lot more, I guess, evil and scary than the other, but, in sort of the villainous, creepy mannerisms, while still, I don't know, like it's hard to say humanity to such an inhumane, terrible character as he is in this film. He plays the villain, but man, it's just so well done. It's such a great villain performance, and he does have a couple of moments with Ralph Fiennes where you don't feel empathetic for him, but you understand, at the very least, like how this has happened to this person. What's led to this point, and it is just like it adds layers to it, and just a fantastic, terrifying, awful, hateable villain performance with nuance as well. Two phenomenal performances. I think it should be said for a film that is a January release, a zombie movie, the fourth movie in a zombie franchise. You wouldn't expect like low-key Oscar-worthy performances here. Ralph Fiennes Oscar nom for, best actor, best supporting actor or something, I'm not against it at all. In fact, I perhaps would campaign for it. But yeah, and I will say, just on that note, I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but I love films that have two or more, equally well-written storylines. This could be films, this could be shows, this could be books, whatever, stories, where there are two separate storylines that are equally well-written and you're, like, equally invested in what's happening to these characters and, the personalities involved. And then you see them colliding and, I know, not only just sort of the novelty of seeing them crossing over, but also what can come out of that. And this film does that, better than, I don't know, a lot of films I've seen in a long time, where the Ralph Fiennes and the Jack O'Connell stories are separate for large parts of it. And when they do cross over, you're, like, very invested in both of these sides of the story. And it's very interesting to see them how they play out together. And they are fascinating together. Again, the movie does sort of this, in a post-apocalyptic dystopian world where, like, how good and evil of humanity sort of manifest in different ways with the Doctor and the Jimmy guy, Jimmy himself. And the way they interact, fantastic. It's just an incredibly well-written movie. It's kind of small scale and tight. Again, if you're going to this for a zombie movie, you will be disappointed. There's, like, very little zombie stuff in this, I guess. It's more of like a nightmarish dystopia, post-apocalypse type of thing. But it is just so well-paced, tight. It's funny. It's emotionally gripping. The Fiennes bits are very, there were a lot of moments where I laughed out loud, and it's also quite sweet. And the Jimmy's bit with Jack O'Connell and all that, very tense, quite disturbing, just fantastically written. And then they cross over in a really, well-done way as well. So, no, just great shit. I've given Alex Garland some shit for his screenplays before. I've said some stuff about maybe he's overrated or maybe I don't know what I said. I think I was pissed about Civil War and Ex Machina. I feel like maybe he doesn't go deep enough on, like, the things that you could go into. There was some other movie, Warfare maybe. But this is just a fantastic screenplay, so I gotta take my hat off to him. And again, like I was saying before, it maintains the style of film from the first film, not just, like, stylistically. It has, some Danny Boyle isms to it, but in the sense that it's not like a traditional zombie movie, without it being sort of a weird tonal whiplash that the first one had. That was kind of cool, but kind of weird. I also think the film was beautifully shot. Just there are tons of shots throughout this that both, communicate the story really well through the visuals and also just are aesthetically really cool. And, there's a great, crane pull away, some technical term shot towards the end that's really good. And there's, again, without spoiling anything, there are reveals, one particularly that could be in a different movie, could feel kind of goofy, could feel kind of forced. Didn't to me. Felt actually kind of, like, interesting and cool and had me more interested in the third film in this trilogy, the finale, and where that's going to go. So, yeah, again, props for that. Overall, man, fucking great movie. Let's talk about some cons. I do have a few cons here, but very minor ones, and, one of them is a little bit more personal, but basically, one, I think, I wouldn't say excessive, I don't know if gore is the right word, but, and I don't know if you'd call it, like, torture porn. There is a torture sequence in this film, or sort of, I don't know if you call it a set piece. There's a bit that involves torture that is, pretty fucking grim and disturbing. And it goes on for a while. And, I don't know, I can see why it's in the movie, because it does, it adds to the tension of, what these characters are what they're doing and what they're capable of. And, it highlights the horrible violence and brutality of this world and, the horror of it all. And it is, it's horrific. It's effective in that way. But I don't know, I feel like he could have cut it down a little bit. Maybe I'm just a bit squeamish or, I feel like it's a little bit of the problem I had when I first watched the movie Old Boy. Not so much about the gore, but that movie I thought like it was so fucked up that I was like, even though I can't say like it's bad, like it's badly written, it's very effective, but it's just like on a totally personal level, I'm like, I don't know, that's just kind of, And so with this, it's a pretty hard to watch, grim extended sequence. And I think I was a little bit like, because I think I'm going to see it again because I like the movie so much. And I'm like, I'm not really looking forward to seeing that again. But, it's not like a sort of excessive, it shouldn't be in the movie. I can understand why it's there. It's well done. It is effective, just on a totally personal level, which might be a weird complaint for a horror movie, but it did feel a little, just maybe you could have shaved that scene down a little bit, perhaps. But still, I understand why it's there and it is well done. And the only other thing really I could think of is that there are some slightly, I've written here MCU-esque, general kind of cheesy movie-esque one-liners where like there's some scenes, there's one bit in particular which I won't spoil, but where something transpires and then someone does like kind of callback line, and it's just like it's a pretty great moment up until that point, and it's like I don't know if you needed that kind of cheesy line. And there was one bit where a character sort of explains something that was you saw in the movie, like you got from watching the movie, and then the character sort of spells it out, and I'm like, I don't know if you needed like to put that fine of a point on it. But these are like, very minor moments throughout. In general, I was incredibly impressed with this. I think it is, it's very well written, compelling, it's funny, it's dark, for my complaint that maybe the gore torture bit could have cut down a bit. I mean, it is a horror movie, and there's not a lot of zombie horror. There's almost no zombie horror in it, to be honest. But the horror of man or whatever that's in it is definitely effective, tense, just fucking really well written. I just love this is not a unique take, but I just love a well-written movie. I just think it's great when you can tell the effort was put in and it ties together really well, and brilliantly performed. I'm going to say 28 Years Later 2, I'm going to give it 4 stars, bordering on 4.5, honestly. This could be a 4.5 movie, which again is sort of crazy because all of 2025, I'm a little stingy with my ratings these days, maybe. I think there were like 5 or 6 movies that were like 4 stars and above, and most of them I'm pretty sure came out in the latter half of the year. So yeah, right off the bat, the first 2026 film I saw in the cinema was like a 4.5 stars. I can see this being on my top 10 list at the end of the year, for sure. So if this is a sign of things to come for this year, I'm excited. But great film. What did you think of it? Let me know down below in the comments. While you're at it, be sure to like this video, subscribe. You can check out my main channel, Beachel Hudson, my podcast, which I record in this great little studio place, the Poorly Planned Podcast, where we talk about movies and TV shows. You can check out my Instagram, BHL_Hudson, and my Letterboxd, Real BHL Hudson. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.